Hello everyone, welcome to another Overrated Film Saturday. Apologies, this video had to be delayed, unfortunately. Not only was I busy over the weekend, but on Sunday I was having volume issues again, and they are working as of now. I am hoping that they will continue to work so I can have these all uploaded by the end of today. So without further ado though, let me address what I want to talk about for this particular Overrated Film Saturday, and that is the film Borat. Yeah, I remember when this film came out. I believe I was in high school, if I'm not mistaken. And it got a lot of hype, and I mean not just hype within the United States, also pretty much hype around the world. I mean, people were really rooting for this movie. People thought that this movie was sort of revolutionary in a certain sense, and I kind of didn't really understand that. Although I think there are certain aspects of the film that are funny, and they have certain bits and pieces that they maybe comment on that you could say are somewhat original. There's a lot to it that I think doesn't necessarily work or hold up as well. But it was definitely not only influential from a critical standpoint and an audience standpoint, it basically launched Sacha Baron Cohen's career, and it really allowed him to propel himself to that stardom that he was never really initially known for. So basically, this story of Borat follows none other than Borat, who is a popular reporter in Kazakhstan, or Kazakhstan, if that's how you pronounce it correctly, I don't know. But basically, he ends up deciding to come to the United States in order to film a documentary about what makes America so awesome. So it's really diving into kind of the, I guess you could say, cultural differences and kind of poking fun at it. You know, how things in Kazakhstan are definitely not the way in which we have as, or the way in which the cultural life is presented in Kazakhstan is definitely not the same within the United States. And again, it's kind of, you know, bringing up a lot of controversial and awkward topics, and in doing so, doing things in an over-the-top way so that people, you know, kind of laugh and sort of get to get to get to kind of thinking about these kinds of issues in a way that doesn't try to just tries to poke fun instead of trying to make one, I guess, feel maybe intimidated. So basically, not only is it about him sort of filming this documentary, he eventually finally, at least being within the United States, wants to ultimately have this goal of finding Pamela Anderson in order to make him his wife, basically. So Borat has that sort of personal goal on the side, sort of, to get the celebrity. And yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of the plot. So from what I've explained, this plot is not entirely all too complex. I mean, it's really straightforward from a writing standpoint, and again, I think that's sort of I guess you could say that's maybe a certain advantage that the film has by the fact that it's stripping things down to a simple level. But I think even then, the humor, although it maybe works, I think, in certain areas, there's a point where I think there are times where humor tries to be too overly raunchy for the sake of being overly raunchy. And I think that's really the thing that doesn't really resonate with me as well as the film would like me to have it resonate with me because of that. And I think that's sort of why I think the film is sort of overhyped for what it is, because it tries to be outrageous. It tries to be over the top. It tries to go to places maybe where certain comedies don't go. But even if it goes there, I didn't necessarily think that it makes it all that more funny or all that more entertaining to watch. So I think that's really the understanding that I want to have with people. It's not that I'm a dirty, filthy American. I love me some dirty, filthy American humor. If you can make fun of us and at the same time make fun of a country that barely anybody probably even heard of, unfortunately, since this movie, by all means, power to you. All about free speech and being raunchy. But there's, I think, a certain point to where, again, it just doesn't become entertaining. It doesn't become engaging or funny because you're doing it for the sake of being raunchy and for the sake of trying to make people laugh. Instead of it kind of just flowing naturally and, just having these kinds of things kind of come off that way, you feel like a lot of the things within Borat, at least from my perspective, I thought a lot of it felt very staged. It felt like these things were part of sort of a reality TV thing. At one point sort of gone wrong, it just doesn't, it just doesn't have the, I think, uh, wit of itself to make it more interesting or entertaining or funny than it is. Now, it's not to say it's, I think, a horrible film by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's, I don't think it's as dumb as some people have made it out to be. But at the same time, I think it's definitely something that's a little bit too. It's one of those comedies where I feel like it's sort of similar to The Hangover in the sense that it was, I think, initially, even with its premise too, it's a little bit overhyped for what it is. It doesn't have really a solid, interesting, intriguing idea behind it, more so as it has some funny jokes within that story. You know what I mean? It doesn't have anything, unfortunately, I think, more than that. And although Borat is the most entertaining character of the entire thing, that's not enough, I think, to unfortunately salvage it from his character perspective, because he's really just kind of, I almost want to say, even though Borat has a certain character aspects to him, he still is, kind of trying to play to the kind of stereotypical aspects of what you would come to expect maybe somebody from a foreign country to at least have reactions to, maybe obviously not in the way that Borat does it, but again, it just, there's nothing about him in particular that says, wow, this guy really does stand out as somebody really interesting. So again, it doesn't have that going for it. So again, it's a good, fun comedy. It's a rental for me, to be honest. It's that kind of a movie it's a rental. And it's not really something that, really, I think, could get really, at least invested in watching really again. At least from my perspective, I couldn't. But at the same time, I will acknowledge that it tries to be humorous and that it tries to do things right. But on the other hand, there's some other things that I think, again, it just kind of falls flat. And, the story is, again, not really all that special. And, there's just a lot of things that really don't really jive maybe as well as they maybe thought that they would jive. At least the creators of this movie probably thought would jive. But again, I think it just definitely depends on what perspective you're coming at from it. And for me personally, I just think it's a good movie. It's just not any way, shape, or form, I think, as great or as much of a standout or even worthy of elevating Sacha Baron Cohen's career in a way. I just don't think this film really, it just doesn't have anything memorable, unfortunately, I think, to it. And the only thing that people I think can really remember is Borat and the fact that he has the mustache and then the thong at one point. And that's really what all the people really I think can remember from this film, unfortunately. And at the end, I think that's not enough to really salvage it being all that great. But that's ultimately all I can say though about this particular subject. But I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.